Very good legalese there, Mark. Go ahead.
Very good. As far from a lawyer as Jackie's avatar looks to her. How's that, Jackie?
I don't know if you know, though, that Zoom sends a notice to everyone and they have to agree to the recording or leave the meeting. So
thank you. And you saved me from all my legal troubles that I could possibly get into. Well, thank you, everyone, and welcome to our April meeting. I had to think about what month we were in here. It's been a great, exciting year for ARMA New England. There's a lot going on, a lot to talk about. I don't have enough time because I want to get to our guest speaker, but you can see on the screen that we've got to save a date, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. But let me tell you about some of the other things that are coming up. Next month, we're going to have Lee Isaac. That's Lee. What am I talking about? Sorry, I should have been more prepared for that. We actually have a 2-day workshop coming up next
3-day.
month. 3-day?
Yeah, we changed it to 3-day.
All right, perfect. An online one that is talking about drafting effective information management policies. That's going to be an exciting event. In June, we're going to be getting and going live and have an in-person meeting. We're really excited about that. Details will be coming up. We're trying to decide finally.
I think you need to go to the golf benefit.
yeah.
Hey, Meg, you want to mute everyone, maybe?
Yeah.
By the way, I was on a presentation earlier and there were 700 people in the room and somebody was ordering their lunch. It was hilarious. So this is what happens today in Zoom meetings. But we also, so we definitely will be in place in June for a live event for our kickoff. Meanwhile, we have a bunch of ad hoc events for our community development by Stephanie McKinney, our own Stephanie McKinney, that will be happening from now till June. We'll take off here. Meg, I am unmuted.
Yeah, you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted now, right? So we have, and we're going to be pulling off this year our first annual golf benefit. This year to benefit Shriners Children's Hospital, but it is an event. And pre-COVID, ARMA Connecticut and ARMA Boston, before we merged to ARMA New England, actually had a 2-day event in Mohegan Sun. And we want to get live again. We want to get that conference again. We're going to start off slow and just have a fun time, start our year off next year early on and by doing this event in September. So it'll be at Mohegan Sun, benefit Shriner, a lot more details to come out, but certainly wanted to go over that with you. The last thing I want to talk to you before I let Ann take over, and Ann, you could share your screen now if you could overtake it from me, feel free. I want to talk about my most recent president report. I talked about, what is volunteerism? I've been a president for 2 years for ARMA New England. I'm very excited to actually be that and be that role. It's been great. I was vice president for 2 years prior to that. I have volunteered for ARMA New England for a number of years along with AIM New England. But I think the benefit you get out of volunteerism in any association is what you put into it. The more you're involved, the more you get benefit out of it. It's not like we're draining you of your time. You're giving and you're benefiting as well. I think everyone that sits on our current board will agree with me. I think everyone that has been involved, and there are a number of people in other chapters, leaders, ARMA leaders here on this call, lots of different chapters on this call. I think you benefit from that. And we have elections coming up this year. We'll be bringing in a brand new board. A new president will be electing, a new vice president will elect. We'll also elect a secretary, and we'll also elect a treasurer. The other positions, VP of Development, which is currently held by Colin Cahill. The VP of Information Technology, led by Megan Duncan, and I think Megan's going to stay in that role if she wants to. Membership led by John Curran. I mentioned Stephanie McKinney, who's a VP of our community outreach. She's done amazing things for that role. As a new role. But we have VP of Marketing. Our VP of Marketing is actually walking the Appalachian Trail, so he's not on this call. And we have other roles that you can get involved in. So whatever level you want to get involved in the chapter and get back from the chapter, we have it. Please reach out to me. Please reach out to anyone else in the chapter. And then, we'd love to have your involvement. We'd love to have the elections, which will be coming out in the month of May. If you're interested in the role, please reach out. We'll put you on the ballot. We'll get you in place. And I'm not going anywhere. As Ann knows, because she's been past president, as Jackie knows, she's currently president. She's going to be past president. You don't leave, you stay involved, and I will still be here with the chapter, and I'm looking forward to that role too. So.
Yeah, Mark, by the way, I'm on my second go round as president. I did
Exactly.
the whole loop.
I wasn't going to go there, Jackie, but. So without further ado, I know you came here to listen to Ann Gorr. Ann is a legal technology consultant, information governance professional. I have known her personally and professionally for a number of years. I can't think of many people in this industry that bring more to the table than she does. When we have an opportunity to have some sort of guest speaker, we'd love to have Ann on it. Ann brings insight into our industry and any topic that she presents. So really pleased to have you, Ann. Thank you very much for your time and for your volunteerism here. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. I talk on a whole bunch of different topics. So thank you, Mark, for being so kind. And thank you for being my friend and colleague. And thank you for all of you for taking time for your busy day to come listen to me speak, right? I can talk and talk and talk and talk. So, just be prepared. So that's the answer to that. But I'm normally in the legal vertical, and I'm serving clients in the law firm environment, corporate legal environment. And I work in information governance almost primarily. So I span that whole, you take that information governance circle and I span that. But interestingly enough, this topic that I'm speaking on about blending empathy and emotional intelligence into your information governance career trajectory actually came out of a session, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, when Nick Inglis approached me and said, how do you meet with success all the time, Ann? How do you get all these people to do the things you want them to do? Why do they always say yes to you? How do you get that? And I said, I don't know. I think most of it has to do with just being nice. Like, how do you treat people nicely, and how do you want them to be part of your team? He goes, well, I want you to talk at my InfoGov conference about just that thing. And I'm thinking, no one wants to hear that. And he goes, no, they need to hear that. Whether they want to hear it, they need to hear it. And so I started talking about this 7 or 8 years ago, before everyone else was talking about it. And I think you'll see a lot of this being talked about today at almost any conference you go to. And I started talking about it for the first time. And it was actually, when I started talking about it, I was scared to death. It was probably one of the first times I've ever been nervous about giving a presentation, because I thought, who wants to hear this? They want to hear, all about AI. They want to hear about all the technology stuff at a tech conference. And actually it was very well received. And it has been a harbinger of what was to come in the future. So I with the people that are on this call, most of us probably fit in this InfoGov, info management, RIM, IG, tech role. We probably, nobody here, or I won't say nobody, very few of us on this call went to school to become what you are today. You didn't, there was no such thing as an information governance specialist or technology person like we have. Many of the tech roles that we are in existence today didn't exist when we were growing up. We didn't raise our hand and tell our first grade teachers that we wanted to be an AI specialist, or we wanted to be a tech. We didn't take college courses that went on this. So how did we get into the roles we're in? We got into the roles we're in because we either were voluntold, right? Or we asked, or we saw something that interested us, or we just fell into that role, or we were the person that was inquisitive enough to want to take hold of a project. And it didn't necessarily give us all the pieces of the pie that we needed to be a whole person in that role. And we just kind of morphed ourselves, but it was continued education that brought us to that path. And if I take a look at what the typical IG, IT, RIM, tech professional holds as a quality, all of these qualities that are up on this chart usually are part of your DNA. I'd say overachiever usually is right front and center. You know, you're usually doing more than you're supposed to be doing. You've got all these, you know, you're pretty passionate about what it is you're doing. You're all excited about what it is you're doing. You're usually pretty analytic over to the point where people like say, would you stop talking about this topic? We don't want to talk about this anymore. You're making us nervous. We're very rules based, and that's sometimes a good thing, sometimes a bad thing. And we embrace change when everyone else is running away from change, almost like firemen, right? Whether they run into the fire, everyone else is running away from the fire. So we have all these wonderful things about us, really wonderful things. I think they're wonderful things. Look at what everyone else thinks, right? They look at those and go, what are you thinking? I don't want to do any of these. Somebody got me this t-shirt. I stole this. Somebody got me a bag, not a t-shirt, because anybody that knows me knows I don't wear t-shirts. I only own one pair of jeans. So I'm, you wouldn't find me in a t-shirt. But I'm not bossy. I just know what you should be doing. My subtitle at my church is called Miss Bossy Boss. So, that's what a lot of people think of us, because we are assertive, because we're always making change happen. They don't like us and they think we're always telling them what they should be doing. And it's how we're delivering the messaging. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that even though we had all those wonderful traits that I put up before, other people view us because we don't have that emotional IQ perhaps on how to portray what needs to be said. We don't have the empathy tool in our toolkit. Well, that's not in, for a lot of people, that empathy and IQ, emotional IQ, is not in our legal technology or our RIM technology or our IG technology toolkit. We are pushing things down the pipeline, and we're not recognizing all of the swirling emotion that's coming from everybody else about that process. And we just want our project to get done. And we're not necessarily worrying about what everyone else is thinking about it. It's like a too bad, so sad. We got to get this done. Get on the bandwagon. What's the problem with you? And that usually isn't a great way to get a project done. Most people don't like to know that you don't really care. You have to find a way to, even in your brain, you might be saying, I don't really care. I mean, I do it all the time. I have a smile on my face and I'm talking nicely at everybody, but the ticker tape that's running through my brain might be like, could you please stop talking to me like that? Right? Like, you still have to put the smile on. So you have to have some ability to be empathetic, while other personal experiences that are being combined around you and that you are that are impacting how the project is happening. You have to be able to take some of the things that are happening around you and ingest them and figure out, how can I make people want to be part of my plan? How can I change the tide here and make this be, who was it that was Carol Burnett that used to say, turn that frown upside down, right? That, you wanted to make a happy outcome. So, and I really think that what's the difference here is that your personal tragic make or break moments in life, whether they're really tragic or they're just experiences that were really difficult, weigh more heavily in how your EQ, IQ definition happens inside of your life. I'm a big believer in, not everybody handles them the same way. I'm a big believer in making lemonade out of lemons. Some people, when something tragic happens to them, they just continue to, pile boulders on top of their shoulders. And if you're that kind of person, then it's difficult for you to make positive come out of negative, right? But if you recognize that something negative has happened and you look at it and say, okay, that's negative. I don't want that to happen to me going forward. And I'm going to try to prevent that from happening to somebody else. That's your mentality. And that's what you bring with you to the next job. So again, all of these wonderful things that you have as a person that, is usually in those roles can be transformed if you are taking the effort to be socially and emotionally aware when others are struggling, and not recognizing that these skill sets are positive things to have in a project-based things, and how you adjust to these changes and how you make things work is probably different than perhaps the person sitting next to you, or the person that works with you, or the people who sits across the continent from you perceives what's going on. And that's what you need to understand when you're in a role change. Like when you're a person that's making change happen, you have to understand that not everybody not everybody's looking through the same lens as you. And that's hard because you've been immersed in your project. You are looking at that project and going, oh, I know exactly what needs to be done. And they haven't been privy to all the backstory that got you to the point where you truly understand what's going on. So I said before, we're all shaped by our experiences, and each one of us has stories to tell. And somebody always says to me, Ann, why are you always so positive? Well, I think it's because I had so many life experiences that weren't so happy, and I chose to be happy and not be negative, right? I'm the oldest of 3 children. Came from a family of 5. My dad, my mom, this was the last picture taken as a family. My mom died when I was 6. My mom died of breast cancer. 3 little kids left with my dad. My dad was a very black and white guy. He was a Navy guy, World War II generation guy, smart as a whip. He went to University of Pittsburgh, was a nuclear metallurgical engineer, otherwise AKA rocket scientist. Like, he was a brilliant man. He helped design the USS Nautilus, which was the first atomic powered submarine. And he was, he worked for Admiral General Rickover. He was smart. He was ecstatic. I saw everything in black and white. He was ecstatic getting this as a Christmas gift. Do not get me that as a Christmas gift. That was a model of an atomic powered nuclear power plant. But he was smart, but he only saw things as an engineer would in linear pieces. You saw your segment and everything was black and white, and there was a yes and a no, and that was all there was. And this is a picture of him with his grandchildren, and he was always delighted. He passed away, actually, and there'll always be an affinity with the New England chapter. He passed away when I was at the New England conference, and I was in 2019. That was the last time that you guys had that, and I will always I was speaking there, and the New England people were wonderful to support me. There's a lot of nice stories there, but this was the last time anybody was smiling at my house, right? They were not happy because after my mom died, my dad didn't know what to do with 3 little kids. He really didn't. And so he took the black and white, in my way, highway, everything's this way. And I was always like, with color, like, well, why? And yes, and my dad would, because I said so, right? And so that's the same, but because I said so, and we've always done it this way, are 2 things that people in our industry go, no, that doesn't work. And so I credit my dad with always saying, with getting me to where I'm at now, because I always asked why. And I always said, but because we said so isn't a good answer. And he would always encourage us to think. But what would happen is that this man who was really such a good guy, he let us stay in the house, and he brought his mother and his mother-in-law to help raise us. So every other week we got one grandmother to come in and stay with us. And one was really nice and one was really cranky. And the really cranky one was really cranky. And they were both Irish, and they had very distinct ideas about what women, when you were going to be learning what you were going to do, what women could and couldn't do. And when I was trying to figure out what it was I was going to do, when I was growing up, both of them were kind of limited, and they were raised in the late 1800s and into the early 20s. They were told me, what could you do when you grew up? I could be a nurse, I could be a secretary, I could be somebody in the fashion services, I could stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. And I'm thinking, I'm pretty damn smart, right? Like, what am I, why should I be those things? I could be a nun, right? We got 2 nuns in the family. I could be a nun. And my Aunt Cecilia, who was a nun, ended up being the superintendent of schools in the Pittsburgh diocese. I grew up in Pittsburgh. And none of the teachers in the 12 years of Catholic school were happy to know that they had one of the Eiler kids in their classroom, that, the superintendent of the Catholic schools was in their classroom. But at the end of that, I didn't get any guidance on what I should be. And that was hard. So, and in that process, I ended up going the teacher route. And I probably should have never been a teacher. I should have gone for something else, but it was okay. I learned a lot of things from being a teacher. I got a lot of good background, a good solid background, but that why question kept haunting me. I mean, I lived my life in my bedroom half the time, because I would say, but Dad, I want to understand why I can't go to whatever. And he'd say, go to your room. And I'd say, but why? And he'd say, because I said so. And I'd say, I understand you said so. I'm not being disrespectful. I would just like to understand, how do I get to yes? And I said, but Dad, you told me to logic things through, and I'm logicking things through. I'd like to understand and, get to your room. So I lived a lot in my room. But But that why was the same question that got me in trouble with administration for the 1 year that I taught. But why do we do it this way? And they said, because we've always done it this way. Well, do we have to do it this way? They couldn't send me to my room, but I think they wanted to. And I think when we take a look at our skill sets and why we do things, how do we vision things? I think I've always seen things differently. And I've always been, I look at what's ahead. I'm always able to look ahead. And I think if you look outside of yourself and you're able to look ahead and see what others are doing, you can get a picture of what might be coming. If you're always looking down, you're never going to see what's coming ahead. So I always was looking ahead to see what other opportunities there were. Another thing that got me in trouble, and this is part of like being a proactive person for yourself. I saw that typewriters and typing and computers were a big thing when I was growing up. And I was on the educational track. And at that point in high school, you were either on educational or vocational. And I wanted to be in the typing computers class and they wouldn't let us in. And I said, but I want to be there. And the guidance counselor said, well, you can't because you're on the wrong track. I said, but I really want to be there. Can I take my study time and be in that class? And they said, you can't be in there, but why? And they said, because, well, we only have so many, keyboards. And I said, well, what if I brought my own keyboard? Well, we don't have a desk for you. I said, well, what if I brought my own desk, right? And I would come over and overcome the objection. And finally, I went back and I told my dad what I wanted to do. And he said, well, that sounds like a solid plan. And I went and bought a desk and bought the typing stuff I needed. And they couldn't say no. So if you can figure out how you want to get there, those skill sets turned out to be, I knew I needed that skill set and ended up having those typing skills with the ability of what I did part-time through all of high school and college was learn typing. I ended up at the Attorney General's office as a part-time student typing. That got me into my first job, which was a technology company outside of teaching because I quit teaching. I flat out quit teaching. Got me into a technology company that said, we need somebody that knows legal, knows how to type, knows how to present, knows how to write lesson plans. That was me. And I picked up and left comfortable Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and came to New Jersey. And I've been there ever since. So that took a different path. It was not where I expected to go. I thought my parents were going to kill me, right? I thought my dad was ready to but why? But it goes to this color, right? That when you're thinking only in black and white, you'll never see the color. And you have to be open to the possibilities of what you might be able to do. And if you're not open to that, you're always going to stay still where you are. But that leads us to the us versus them mentality that goes out there when we are doing those projects, because we are forward thinking, because we are all of those things that were on that chart of self-confident, motivated, overachiever kinds of people. Usually we're driven, we're passionate. We kind of get an us versus them tag put on us. And because technology is moving at the speed of light, because we're aware of the risk to the business, because many of us are working in a global workplace, or even like right now, I have clients all across the country, not necessarily global, but all across the country. We're on different time zones. Our time is not our own. Social media is drawing us. There's a lot of, we're not so much having the in-person networking stuff going on, whether that's just because of the fact that we're distributed differently or because we're in COVID times still, we're still trying to figure that pathway out. Everybody's saying do more for less, right? But we still need to see, we're cutting you back by 20%, but we still need to see a return on our investment. Like, what a dichotomy, right? So how do we stop that fire hose where we're from knocking us over, where we're continuing to be drained and tapped out and placed in stressful situations? And when you're too stressed, your natural reaction is to not be nice. You tend to stop being nice when things when things keep going at you. So I like to say to people, I like due to recent cutbacks, right? This is how often we feel, right? That there is no light, right? And with that being said, I like to talk a little bit about empathy, right? And with that being said, empathy, what is it talking about? It's saying we want you to be sensitive to and aware of everybody's feelings. And that's hard because sometimes your own feelings are hurt. Sometimes you're thinking, I don't really care what the hell you like. I need to get this done and you're impinging on my time and I got to get this done and I really don't care. And sometimes we need to take a step back and say, are we being sensitive to somebody else's thoughts? You know, are we, because sometimes we really don't care, but we have to, that's a practice. It's something that you have to practice and get, like, take a deep breath and step back from where the hot button is, right? We all have a hot button and you should recognize when that hot button's getting a little too hot to touch, and be aware that there are other reasons why people react the way they do to you. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you. A lot of times we think it's, you know, we think it's us and they're reacting to us, or we think it's about us. 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with you. 9 times out of 10, it has absolutely nothing to do about you or your project. It has to do with the chaos that's surrounding their lives. And we need to be aware that that's what empathy is about, is that you're being sensitive about the feelings around you. And when we talk about blending emotional intelligence into your life, it's talking about returning to an era of civility. Like, we are not being civil to one another these days. We're not being nice. Just be nice, right? Just be nice. We're not being nice. And the workplace is becoming more impersonal and more stressful. And then we get this stress that's caused by our own, we have enough stress, like we have enough stress to kill us, right? People are dying all over the place because of stress. And it's whether the external factors or there are things that are beyond our control, and the internal factors, which are within our control. And it's how you choose to handle those things that makes all the difference in the world. And sometimes those factors, you can be really instrumental in fixing it for someone else. And so I ask you to start thinking about these letters of empathy, right? And how we can work through them. These, I have this here. You can look this up. It's posted. But this, this is an article from Fast Company, and they're people that used to write for the Harvard Business Review. But they talked about 6 skill sets people will need post-pandemic. And I go beyond post-pandemic, right? They were just, when all the hoopla was going through about, oh, what are people going to need now that they're working from home, and what are they, when they come back, what are they going to need? And they said that the 2 biggest things that they needed were self-direction and empathy out of this. And they said that you know, self-direction, the ability to captain your own career, because people were working, right? Like that was a big thing when the whole pandemic started, was, are we going to make, are we assuring ourselves that our people are going to be able to work on their own and work without oversight, which I think, you know, come on, we're grown-ups. Most people can work without oversight. And did they have the digital capabilities? Well, none of us on this call had that problem. We all could work without that. But the biggest thing was empathy to understand the challenges of other employees and that what the organizations were facing. And empathy is not just, you know, not just what you were doing, but how were other people doing? And many of you that are in management roles, you know, I don't know if you recall, but there was this big push to make sure that you were doing check-ins with your people who were struggling when we were all so locked down. And communications management became huge, is that you had to be aware of how you were communicating with people, not only on the written word, but how were you talking to people? Because now we were talking to them in a different forum. You know, we were talking to them over Zoom, and you had a finite period of time, and you had to make sure that your communication skills were working appropriately. And then how are you adapting to that change? That was important. But the big one that they set out of all of this was, how are you using your empathy skills? And then at the end, being a self-motivator. How are you using all of these to blend all of these pieces together? Were you helping others to use all of these other skill sets to move forward? And I thought it was a really interesting article. But this, I thought, was a great article. And this was in the Harvard Business Review, that people were worried. And this has been going on since we started talking about AI years and years ago, about what are people talking about with, I'm going to be replaced. I'm going to be replaced by new technologies. And one of the things that it can never replace are emotions and context. You can teach computers to do certain things and code to do certain things, but you can't code in emotion and you can't code in contextual clues. So those are 2 big things that if you can key in on nonverbal communication. Like it can do a lot. AI can do a lot. It can read, like there's a really great, I should bring it up. I'll when I think of it, I'll look this up, but there's a whole thing that there's a blind man that is involved in, it's a Microsoft AI video, and it talks about a blind man helping a blind man interact in a real life world. And he wears eyeglasses in this video. It's really very cool. Anybody that knows Dennis Garcia, he gave an AI session one time at Inform, at the Inform conference, if anybody went to that. And he showed this video, and it showed this gentleman a blind gentleman wearing glasses. And what it would tell him is, hey, there's a woman looking at you. She's speaking at you, and she's smiling when she's speaking. So it let that person know what that face was doing. So at least he knew that the person was responding positively to that. So that is somewhat of a nonverbal. It was grabbing some of that, but not everybody has those glasses, right? Not every computer has those glasses to say that there's a contextual clue there. And that's that nonverbal communication, along with the context, where it's helping with making decisions about what do you do based on the emotion that's happening. That's where you start putting together critical thinking. And that's something that computers can't do. And if you can get that skill set and be aware enough of what's going on around you, then you're going to meet with success. And I want to read something to you that came out of this survey. And it's something that I thought was, it said that 93% of employers reported a candidate's demonstrated ability to think critically, communicate clearly, and solve complex problems is more important than his or her undergraduate degree. In addition, employers seek candidates who have other sort of soft skills, such as being able to learn adaptively, to make good decisions, and to work well with others. Guess what? That's all emotional quotient stuff. These sought after skills and abilities fit perfectly with the sort of things that people can do well, but are and will continue to be difficult to automate. So we got to get our social skills up. We've got to get our emotional quotient going in a forward trajectory, or we're going to be sitting backwards. So I use the word empathy to start pulling those together. What can we do here? Well, the E in empathy, when we're working on projects, whether they're technology projects, new initiatives, whatever they are, if I take the E and I use all these E words, I engage the people before I just, there's so many people, and I just had this happen to me at a client the other day. Like, I don't even know why we're talking to all these people. Why don't we just do the project and then tell them what they got? I'm like, oh, good luck with that, right? If I engage people and ask for their opinion, and I tell them what's coming, and I ask for their help, and I educate them as to what's coming down the pike, they're going to embrace my process. They're going to encourage other people in their department to help. It's going to empower them to be adopters and early, like when you get that group that's the beta group, they're going to be the ones that are going to evangelize. It's another E word, right? They're going to evangelize your project, and it's going to meet with success. But that's the first thing, is you're not in it alone. And if you don't do all of these E words with everybody that's around you, another E word, then you're not going to get empathy working well, right? You need to engage people around you. Managing moments, or I can say make it a marketing moment, whichever way you want. I can give you all kinds of M words, but it's about messaging. How do you talk to people? How do you talk to people? Do you sometimes listen to yourself? Sometimes I listen. Sometimes I have to sit back and listen to myself, because sometimes I am bossy boss. Sometimes I know that I get on a thing and I sound like bossy boss, and I'll say, I'm so sorry. And I am sorry is a really good word to learn. I am really sorry. You need to stand down sometimes. If you're always in charge, maybe you need to let somebody else who isn't as heated take over. If you think that a discussion is getting a little heated, or you're not happy with how a project's going, maybe you need to count to 10, or maybe you ask someone else to manage the meeting for the day. Most of us did not go to school to be marketing majors or sales majors. And I'm blessed that I should have been I should have had a major in marketing or sales, because I can I can get anybody to give me anything just about. I don't know how that happens, but most people didn't. And I can make a really difficult situation turn out to be a good situation. Most people can't. And that's a skill set that I think is kind of inbred in you or not. But if you don't have that skill set, let somebody else do that, but don't make it worse. But you do have to have some sales skills. You have to have some of that. And, you know, messaging is a big thing in that. If you're not sure how to deliver a message, or you're not sure that the message you're going to deliver is set up right, ask somebody else you know who's good at that. You know, particularly, you know what, if you're working on a project and you're delivering it and you've got a sales team that's working with you on a project, that's an outside sales team, ask them what they think of what you're doing. If you know, sometimes they'll give you input to say, I don't think I'd use that word. You know, I don't think I'd put it that way. They've done that over and over and over again. What you have to know is what's in it for them, not what's in it for me, right? Not the with them. You always hear the what's in it for me. No, what's in it for them, and understand that, you know, we're the change adopters. They're not the change adopters. They're looking at it like, oh my God, you're going to make my life so difficult, and I've got 4 more years to retire, and I got to deal with this for 4 more years. I don't want to do this. So just pushing out a plan without having any collaboration or any input or any messaging is a surefire way to meet with resistance and potential failure. The P in empathy, I call it people, processes, and programs. And really, we could change it to business requirements when you're doing a project. I'm employed because people don't do business requirements. You know, they go in and they do something and it's a failure because they didn't find out all the details, and then they deliver the project and they didn't include everybody, because remember that everyone thing. But there is no B in empathy, so I can't use the B for business requirements. But getting the right people at the table so that all the voices are heard. When you exclude people from your project, they know it, and unfortunately, you're going to undermine yourself because somebody is going to speak up after the project's done, and you can't do anything about it. So you need the right input, you need the right data, you need the right people. Ask that most difficult person, even if you don't like them, even if they're difficult, ask them anyway, because you'd rather get those objections out of the way early. Get the right processes down. Make sure you're understanding. Ask the why questions. But why did you do that? Why? Why? Remember, Anne, why? Why? Not because you've always done it that way, but why? You know, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe all that needs to happen is that the nut has to be tightened a little bit so that the wheel doesn't wobble. And eliminating those processes because people said, well, we've always done it that way. I don't really care if you've always done it that way. I'd like to find out, is there another better way to do it? And if we've always done it that way and it needs to stay that way, okay. Because is that the best way? It might be, but it might not be. So it's letting people hear, getting people to listen and giving them the opportunity and providing them with options instead of just one option. Give them options. Because when you have just disparate systems, as we've all talked about, we've all experienced this, things that don't connect together aren't a really good situation, because people will then squirrel their data. All of us that are data people die here. This is like a disaster. You can build wonderful things with Connects, wonderful things with Lincoln Logs, wonderful things with Legos. Guess what? I can't build them all together. I can't put them all on the floor and build everything interchangeably. I have 3 disparate systems. And when I have that, I don't have a congealing environment. So that people, processes, and programs is a big thing to pull together. And I think understanding the expectations about the people that are involved in the peoples and processes. This quote by Maslow is really well used. It's perfect for this whole situation. It goes back to practicing empathy in your daily information governance life, and not just your project life. Because if you're only practicing empathy when you need a specific outcome, people pick up on that real quickly. They're going to stop. They're going to stop talking to you. They're going to stop when they see if you're only nice to them when you need something. They figure that out. You know. So you know, like if you think of it as in a home design, you know, if you only bring plumbers to your project, you're going to have probably all your toiletry is going to work right, but the rest of your house is going to look like crap. So you have to have everybody involved, and communications is a big part of that. I have a client where I brought my little magic scepter. I literally brought a magic scepter to a client. They thought I was crazy. And I brought this to my meeting, and I was brought in to assess their environment, to find out what people were doing, because they knew there was a problem. And I went in and I asked them, what do you do? And what, how are you doing things? I was asking them specific questions, and I said, and at the end of it, I have a magic wand. I want you to tell me. And I literally brought this magic wand. And of course it has, like, anybody that knows me, it has diamonds and pearls and everything on it. It looks more like a queen scepter, but I literally brought it to the client, and I said, and when you're done, I'd like you to tell me one thing you would like me to change. And ironically, do you know, it wasn't anything that had to do with technology. They wanted, or most times about technology, most times, you know what they wanted? Simple things. And this is so true of things. They wanted IT to listen to them when they had a problem. They wanted IT to let us in on the plan. Could you just let us know what's going on so we know what to expect? We can't get our work done because nothing works. They're putting roadblocks up in front of us. They don't understand our needs, and we can't get our work done, right? We need better training. We need better communications. They weren't rocket science things. They were things that people didn't feel valued, and they weren't being included. So we're not an all-in-one. Like, you're giving me a tool that another person has, but I need a different tool. And so people need to feel valued. And when you start realizing that not everybody's the same, that's really the key. People need to be affirmed, right? Seeking affirmation, seeking approval. If you just, it's so easy. Think how good you feel when somebody says thank you, or your boss tells you you did a great job, or somebody says, Anne, like what Mark said in the beginning, you want Anne on that makes me feel good. When somebody says something nice, how easy is that? How easy is that to say something nice about somebody in front of somebody else? It's, not only nice to them, but in front of somebody. I like to do things like, when I'm doing a project, they'll say to me, I'm coming in as a consultant. So you could be telling your boss the same thing I'm going to tell them, and they'll listen to me, and you'll say, oh, well, they'll tell them. But you know what I do? When I'm there, I know that happens all the time, that Megan's been telling her boss the same thing that I go in and tell them, and they go do it. And so we get the presentation, I'll do something like, well, Megan was the one that told me that you're having these issues. That affirms Megan. That affirms what I said. I had that discussion with Megan, and she's like, well, they told me, I've been telling them that forever. I turn around and I affirm that Megan's concepts confirm my findings. Or I'll say, so-and-so, I had a project where a paralegal really helped me on something. And I'll say, I want to really thank you for giving me that paralegal to help me on this project. She was such a great asset for this. I didn't have to say that, but by saying that, it said they have a good person on their team. And that paralegal got recognition by the management committee that she helped in a project that helped the firm. Right. So it was really simple. It was no skin off of my nose. Right. It was just something nice. And if you start learning, if you put that into your daily practice of thanking somebody publicly every day, it becomes second nature. Put that on your list of to-do things. Make sure you thank somebody every day and affirm them. And that's something I like to do. The other one that goes with that is thank yous. And I told you, I'm sorry also is a good one to throw in there, but thank you for bringing that situation to my attention. I'm so sorry that happened. But the thank you aligns also with the A in acknowledgement, right? Acknowledging that so-and-so helped me. I write thank you letters to people that help me in a project. And I put them just, it doesn't cost a lot. I can't remember the name of the Cards Direct or whatever there's lots of online places. You can get a little card, a note card with your name on it. And it looks really classy, and it's like $20, and you put your name on it, and you can write a little thank you note and just thank you for setting up the conference room. I write those to the receptionists that would help set up the conference rooms. Thank you. It took so much, made my program so much easier. And I write them. Thank you to the paralegal that helped me. Thank you to the so-and-so that did. I write thank you notes. I also use those same blank cards to say, I'm so sorry that I heard that you lost your cat last week, right? Or that your cat died, or you lost your dog. Like those little touches, those, sending a sympathy card, sending a birthday card, those little touches. People don't write cards anymore. And it's the power of the written note. It's a skill set that people just don't do anymore. If you write a thank you note with your handwritten note, no one does that. You'll be recognized for forever. Your mother was absolutely right when you had to write a thank you note. And the other part is the H is the human factor. My grandmother, my Irish grandmother, the nice one, Mary Stella Conroy, she used to say, even, and I'll say it with her little accent, even if you didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and it cost you nothing to be nice. So just be nice. Just be nice. It really costs you nothing. You could be poor as a church mouse, as you used to say. You just be nice. And so understand what your colleagues are doing. Understand how stressful their lives may be. Learn about them. I had a client where I asked if I could speak to a paralegal. Could I use her for a half an hour? Could get some information. And the IT director said, he was like annoyed with her. And he's like, she never is around. She's never helpful. She never has time for me. If you can get her, good luck. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a little harsh. So I talked to her and I said, Josephine, can I have time? She goes, well, I have to be done by 4:30. And he had said, and she's always out of here at 4:30. I thought, oh, okay. So I made sure she was done by 4:30. But when I was talking to her and she was apologizing that she had to get up and leave, she said, I'm so sorry. I have to leave. My husband's undergoing chemotherapy and I have to be there to pick him up by by 6 o'clock. And if I don't leave the city, I won't be there in time to pick him up. And I thought, what a jerk you are, Mr. IT. You don't even know what your own people are going through. And so later on, he goes, well, did you get to talk to Josephine? And I said, yes. And I said, do you know why she leaves at 4:30 every day? And he goes, no. I said, her husband's going through chemotherapy. He's got cancer. And he felt like this big, right? Know your people, know what's going on. I mean, some people don't talk about what they're going through. They don't say, but kind of try to figure out what's going on. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they're caring for elderly parents. Maybe you don't know what's going on behind the door. I always say, you don't know what's behind door number 2, right? But make sure, learn your people's names, make a difference, learn who's the general, what's the name of the person that you're dealing with, learn their names, pick up the phone and find out how your colleague's doing, make check-in calls on these fact that we're not seeing our colleagues. Just take the time to go pick up the phone and call somebody, because social interaction is missing. The change is difficult, and just find out how people are doing. And I really believe that, empathy is, and I don't know if you know what that's called when you do EMPATHY, that's called an acrostic. Empathy isn't a one and done thing. It isn't something you just do today and then you don't do it again for something you should practice every day. Take one of those letters that I gave you, and whether it's the thank you or the acknowledgement, at least start putting it in your daily routine once a week. And when things get tough, don't hold on to that grudge. Don't put that stake on the hill. Don't continue to be mad. Just take a breath. Count to 10. Just be nice, as Mary Stella Conroy said. Know that you sometimes don't always get to see your karma in action, right? You don't always get to see that positivity fall through, but just know that you just be kind. It really does work. And then when it comes to change, some people hate change. Like, just think how difficult, think how some people, like in my house, you better put that toilet paper where the toilet paper goes over the top, not under, right? Like if it's that kind of household you live in, right? Change can be difficult, but it doesn't have to be, it is mandatory, but it doesn't have to be painful. And you as the keeper of change for your organization, sometimes you are responsible that it can be optional. You can help make it be optional. Fear of change is real, because there's lots of people that are, they're afraid of the unknown. And it goes into another quote that's a favorite of mine: if you really don't know what you really don't know. And the last one that I want to talk about is the why in empathy, which is you. And there's and I'll never forget that when I gave this presentation somewhere, Jim Koziel of my chapter was in the audience, and I tell you, there's a reason the flight attendants on there, though most of us haven't flown up a lot lately. In case of an emergency, attach the oxygen mask to yourself and then help others. Take care of yourself. Stress takes a toll. You need to follow. Like I know I've had a meltdown. I knew I needed help. I went and got help when I had a meltdown. Empathy begins at home. You need to take time. You need to put boundaries up. You can't be working 24/7. You need to walk away from your laptop. If you have the opportunity to go on vacation, you need to step away from all your devices and take a vacation. You're not going on vacation if you're taking your work with you. You're just taking a staycation, right? You have to figure out that work versus life balance and put boundaries around things. I subscribe to the Jack Welch school of thought on emails on late evenings and weekends and that kind of thing. He had a thought that said, just because you're an overachiever doesn't mean everybody else has to read your email, right? He said, don't send emails on late night hours and weekends. And so there is a delay option in the Microsoft Office. If you go into options and delay send, you can write emails to your heart's content if you feel more productive at night and you want to write those emails at 10 o'clock at night. Just do the delay option in email and send it out in the morning. You could write 10 emails on Friday night, and there'll be 10 emails on somebody's inbox on Monday morning. So don't bother people, because then you're forcing somebody else to take your actions. So my last slide is the serenity prayer, and I'm not doing it just because I'm Irish Catholic and making you pray. We all know this prayer, right? And it's sometimes we just need to step it back. I can't fix everything. I can't change everything. I can't do everything. And you need to know that. But I think there's a better prayer that is this one, which is the other serenity prayer. I thought it was funny. This woman made sure that you knew that it was Eleanor Brown with 2 N's was in her name. I'm trying real hard. I'm trying real hard. I'm doing the best I can do. And this is the best I got to offer. Right. And I think this is the one we need to be thinking of, that this is how I follow the why, right? This is how I do me. And I'm doing the best I can do. And all of those, that box that had all those things that we do really well, sometimes all those boxes can fall down on top of us if we're not paying attention. So these are all the things in empathy, engage, manage those moments, pay attention to people and processes, give some affirmation, say thank yous, be aware of the human factor and the humility that's evolved with that, and take care of you. So, and the last thing is, technology is nothing. What's important is that you have faith in people. They're good and they're smart, and give them tools. They're going to do wonderful things. And with that, I'll close because we're a few minutes over. Willing to take any questions, but I think I've talked for forever. So I appreciate your time.
Outstanding, and as always, I remember seeing this presentation at the InfoGov session. You've tweaked it for the newer times, which I love, but it was great seeing it because I'll never forget the stories about your dad. We thank you. I'll open it up for questions as well. Anyone have any questions for Ann at this point? The silence is deafening.
I don't have a question, but just as an FYI, Google also has that delay option. So if you use Google for Business, you can do the same thing that Ann recommended for Microsoft.
I do it all the time because I'm a night owl, so I tend to write a lot of things like at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I thank you so much, Shusra. I write a lot at night, and then I send them out at 8 o'clock in the morning. And and I'm still doing my hair at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'm not a morning person. So I'll send them all out, or I'll do maybe work 1 or 2 hours over the weekend, and I'll just do some things and then I'll send them out. I refuse I refuse to bother people over the weekends. Unless somebody's hair's on fire, I'm not sending you an email in the middle of the night or sending an email, because what does that do? That forces somebody else to have to stop what they're doing, and they might look at it, or, you know, or now they're worrying about whatever it is you wrote. I'm not doing that unless the whole house is burning down. There's no reason that cannot wait until the next business day.
I think, Ann, you use it as an empathy tool, which I appreciate and love. I use it from a sales strategy tool. I deal a lot with India. I
Mhm.
want it to hit their desk first thing in the morning, in the middle of my night. So instead of sending it at the end of my day, I wait till it goes out at a different time, hits their desk first thing in their morning. So
Mhm.
you can use it either way. It's a
Right.
great
right.
tool.
Yeah, I just don't like to bother people. Thank you so much, Donna. I don't like to bother people, right? I just think that that's not, it's not fair. My clients appreciate it when they'll say, they're like, oh, thank you for not sending that. You know, when I say, oh, a vendor couldn't do something for us or whatever. I just think it's rude to think that people should be on your cadence. And particularly now that we're in this, quasi, some people are back at work, some people, well, see, that's thank you, Ken, but not everybody is like you.
Gotta go, Ken.
But I can't do that. See, that's the problem. I can't do that. There's something from you and you're my client in my mailbox. I got to read it. So I can't help myself, right? I know what my problems are, and one of them is that, and I can't not read it. So, I think that's a big issue.
Hey, you have to do like I do, and I leave my work phone in my car on Saturdays. I don't get it again till Sunday morning, and then I'll look at it. If it's important, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I
That's
don't
why you
even-
have two phones, Jackie.
Yeah, I don't have two
That's
phones.
it.
The only thing on Sunday that I do when I look at my work computer is I look to see what's on my agenda for Monday. When's my first meeting? And do I need to get up earlier?
Mhm.
Right. But I think it's hard because people are on all different schedules now, like some people are on all kinds of different flex schedules because we're all working, most of us still working from home. And I've always worked from home, so that's never been an issue for me, but I do need to know what's going on. But anyway, I don't want to keep you. It is 2:00 straight up. Thank you, Ruth. It was nice that you joined us. And thank you all for joining us today. And Jackie, thank you for joining. Jackie and I never,
This is the first time I've got to hear it. I didn't make any of the other sessions.
I know Jackie and I are usually presenting at some conference at the same time. We never hear one another's sessions. So we're on the same board, so we never get to see one another at the same time. We're usually running one another's programs, and we never get to see one another. So it's nice to know that. So thank
Thanks,
you.
Ann. I got to jump for 2:00. Thank you, everyone. I
Thank
look forward
you.
to,
And
future
wonderful
meetings.